All right, so welcome to another episode of Closers. I've been standing all day, so I'm going to set my ASS down. I'm getting tired of standing all the time doing all these training calls. So I'm here with our co-host, my business partner, our CEO, Matt Ryder, in our Sydney, Australia office. We're coming live to you from our Scottsdale, Arizona office. Just had a great interview with a client, Caden, that quite literally went from like $1,500 a month in commissions, sells life insurance, a year ago when he got into our advanced training. And within about 4 to 5 months, went all the way up over 30 grand a month in commission. So well done, Matt. I know you did some training with him. He was in our group training calls, all that kind of stuff.
He's a good guy. He's slapped around pretty hard.
Yeah, I know, right? We're slapping.
Took it well.
So I wanted to talk about just tonality. We do a lot of, our sales trainers, even us, we do a lot of reviews of sales calls from, clients that we have, individual clients, company clients. And one thing that we typically always hear, right, and we see is salespeople's tonality. It's like they sound so scripted. Like even when we start teaching them the right questions, like here's the right questions to ask, and here's the psychological thing. It's like they're a robot. Like, so what caused you to book?
It's like they're reading the script, like physically.
Yeah.
And then he said to the lady,
it's like expecting George Clooney to go into like a movie audition and be like, and then I said, stop, and you will go. And it's like, they sound like this robot. And then, as a salesperson, when you're on a sales call, whether it's outbound, inbound, cold calling, in a boardroom, in a home, on Zoom, doesn't really matter. If you sound like a robot, you just sound like a telemarketer, right? Which triggers your prospect to emotionally shut down because they know what you're doing, right? It's like you're sitting there reading off the script. In your mind, because you've done a lot of call reviews, like with different clients and companies, what are you seeing from those call reviews?
There's two things that I can tell from when I'm reviewing a call. One is I can tell if they haven't memorized that script.
Yeah,
I can tell that straight away, because like they are reading it, so they have it up, which I think is a good technique. Have your script up, that's fine, but you should just be like, I should just be able to see the first 2 letters of a line, and then it's automatic.
Yeah.
Right. And it's just a reference point so that I can listen to the prospect. So that's one, like they're reading the script. When you're reading it, it's so obvious and it comes off robotic and all that kind of stuff. So it's not memorized. The second thing is I can physically hear their inner monologue.
Yeah.
And it's louder than the prospect.
Yeah.
And so that creates this like disconnect of what the prospect is saying. And you get this a lot when somebody has not a verbal tick, but it's like they'll have a word that they'll say, which is their reset word, like perfect or right or okay or like.
And they keep saying it over and over.
Yeah. One of the funny ones that I had, it was a client of ours, he had perfect. And we were reviewing his call, and the person was like, yeah, man. So, my wife left me and it just left me with nothing. He's like, okay, perfect. I was like, bro, did you hear what just happened?
Yeah.
I was like,
no, it's so true because it's like these filler words, right? So when I'm reviewing calls, because we have, in the inner circle, we have a training call every Wednesday where I'm actually, these are like our highest paid members and advanced members. And they're, it's a call review. So I'm listening and I can tell because they'll ask a question and I can tell they don't have everything memorized, right? So they'll ask a question like, well, what were you hoping to, they'll be all scripted. Like, what were you hoping to get out of the call with us today? Just so I understand. And they'll be like, well, I'm looking for this, I'm looking for that. And they'll be like, okay. Gotcha. And when they're saying that, here's what I'm interpreting that to mean. I have no idea what the hell I'm supposed to ask next or say. Yep. So I'm going to say, hey, gotcha.
Fill this in.
They're like, what the hell am I supposed to do now? It's because they don't have it memorized. And that's why, a lot of times, this is the thing. A lot of times salespeople that go door to door, or they have to meet a prospect in their home, or they're selling B2B. So they're like meeting the prospect, maybe not on Zoom, but they're actually meeting the prospect in their office. It's actually sometimes those clients they have to pick it up faster because they have to memorize everything, right? Like you're on Zoom,
in-person fitness sales, whatever. Like you can't have a script with you.
You can't have a script on your arm. You're like, oh, what's the next question I'm supposed to ask? So it's like, it forces them to like memorize and learn it. Whereas salespeople that take like maybe inbound leads on Zoom, or maybe they sell something over the phone, like outbound leads, and they're working from their home or an office, they can just have the script plastered on the wall, and it's like they get lazy and they just want to read it.
Yeah, I think like it's a real issue, which is why we do two things at 7th level. We train and we coach, right? There are two things. So if you've ever seen like a movie about special forces guys and they're blindfolded taking their gun apart, right? They'll never be required in real time to take their gun apart blindfolded. But what they will do is they will need to take their gun apart whilst getting shot at and not being able to look down at their gun. So that training is there to create a system in your brain, which you find yourself doing. So whenever you hear like special forces soldiers and like, you have like after like battle accounts, they'll go, what was this? And you go, well, I just started doing this. And they go, why? And you go, I just found myself doing it.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, because that training has put an automatic fallback position, which is why like we teach people the NEPQ system first.
Yeah.
You have to learn the system first, and you have to be able to do it fucking blindfolded.
Yeah.
If you don't know, when clients come to me with like, like some of those clients that we were talking about yesterday, right? They were like, oh, we need help with this and this and this in our script. So I got in touch with some of them. I said, what are the 7 phases of NEPQ? And they couldn't answer. I said, I am not even considering answering any questions that you have about this specific script until you can tell me what phase, in what order, and why. Yeah. Because without that, this is useless, because you haven't done the training to have the coaching be effective.
Yeah, you don't understand the psychology behind why you're even asking questions in the first place.
And that's what stops the perfect, right, okay, gotcha, because you have an automatic fallback position, which is I know what to do, and you don't even think about stuff, you just find yourself doing it.
You react. It's so true, because most of your sales conversations you're in, no matter what you sell, go off script most of the time. It's not like perfect where you ask a question, they open up emotionally, you ask the next question and probe and clarify, and everything goes perfect. They might throw a curveball or a screwball, a knuckleball, and you have to know how to react to that. And only salespeople know how to react to that once they understand NEPQ and the psychology behind it. Once they understand, like, okay, the reason why I'm asking connecting questions is because of this, this, and this. Here's the reason why I have to ask situation questions. Here's what I'm looking for in problem awareness. And it doesn't matter where the prospect goes, the salesperson knows how to react when something happens that doesn't go right to pull them back in. Exactly. If you don't understand the psychology and you're just like have a script in front of you and you're just asking questions, you're always going to get thrown off. Well, not all the time, but a lot of the times, because you don't understand the psychology behind why you're even asking the question in the first place.
Yeah. So what are some tips that you would give a salesperson who is finding themselves a little bit more robotic, a little bit more, they emphasis the wrong syllable, as it were.
Right. Yeah.
Talking like walking. Yeah. Oh, weird. Yeah. So yeah, what are some things that we can do to make it more conversational? The first thing you
have to do is like go back. Let's say you're an NEPQ 2.0 member, 3.0 member, Inner Circle, whatever. You go back to the first part of the virtual training course. The first couple. The virtual training course, the full version of it, 3.0 version is like 30 hours long. But the first 3 hours, and we're talking 10% of the entire course, there's no tactical training. It's all the psychology behind NEPQ. Here is the reason why you're asking these type of questions. Yeah. Here's how they react. Here's the reason why you're asking consequence question. Once you conceptualize that and understand the psychology behind it, it makes everything so much easier. But a lot of people skip that. And they're like, I'm going to skip that. That makes, I think I get it. And they'll just go right into the questions and they don't conceptualize why they're even asking them.
Could you imagine if a doctor did that? Hey, no, I really don't want to learn about this. I just want to go straight to the surgery.
Exactly.
And it sounds ridiculous when you say it that way, but it's so true. I think salespeople, I think most people in general, they're not as studious enough.
Yeah.
Whereas if you look at the people who I consider to be really successful, like you have a look at one of our clients, Sean, $100,000 a month earner. Yeah. I can log into the portal right now because we can see that dude logs in 3 days a week for 30 minutes and goes through the foundational stuff in the portal just to keep his stuff sharp. He does the training. He blindfolds himself, puts the gun part back together so that when he goes in for a sale, he's automatic. And so the people who are studious,
$100,000 a month, he's still going through it because he wants to make more.
Yeah. I mean, why not?
No, exactly. So I think that's the first part. I think the first part is really learning the psychology behind neuro-emotional persuasion question.
So not
Learning,
the what, but the why.
the really the human behavior side, like understanding the psychology of why a person buys or doesn't buy. Like what does the decision-making process look like? The second thing you have to do is once you understand that, then we teach you how to write out your questions for your industry. And you take those questions. And one thing that really helped me. So like when I transitioned from the first industry I sold in, which was door-to-door home security systems, to then selling in a completely different industry. I'm talking about you couldn't be further from difference. I got into B2B sales, the second industry, selling debt relief services, way different than door-to-door B2C, completely different. Okay, you're talking like, now I'm selling stuff for $1 million, 10 million. Whereas before I was selling a free alarm system where they just authorized a 36-month agreement for $50 a month, right? So completely different thing, right? Different way of thinking. So what I did is I'm like, okay, I've got my question, I've got my process, like what connecting questions am I going to, and I'd write them out and I'd put them on flashcards. So I'd put my connecting questions on this flashcard, my situation questions on
exactly what I did.
And I took those flashcards, I literally would like take them with me. I was getting a haircut, I'd pull them out and I'd start memorizing them, reading them. I'd, have 5 minutes when my kids, were at the, playground playing, and I'd pull out like and memorize the situation questions. And all I did all the time was like keep memorizing and role playing and memorizing and role playing. So it was like I was going into a movie set, like, Brad Pitt does or George Clooney or whoever. And I walk in there and I am the person, I'm the character in the show. Like I come into it like I'm already that person, right? I'm not Jeremy Minor. I'm like I'm this guy, right? Like an actor or actress would. And when you come in that way, it just gives you so much what I call collective confidence that people feel that. It's not like you're going to like, oh, hey, you're looking for life insurance. Awesome, man. That's so awesome. I'm so glad. Or like, oh, you're looking for a new car. Oh, that's awesome. I'm that's so glad you came in. Like that stuff doesn't work. But you come in with collective confidence where people automatically, just the first couple questions out of your mouth, they're just like, dude, this person knows, like, this is the expert, right? And you don't get
that's a big thing too. So go like just talk on that for a minute. This guy is the expert, because you might not be the expert in that field. Like technically, like when you were selling alarms, I'm sure you didn't.
I never even knew how it worked.
Yeah.
Didn't have because I wasn't selling the alarm.
Explain what you mean when they say this guy's the expert.
Because I wasn't selling the alarm panel. I wasn't selling the door sensors. I wasn't selling the motion detector. I was selling them the results of what that alarm system was going to do when the husband went to town on business. And he's like, I know my wife and my 4 kids are safe. I was selling the results of what happened with all the break-ins in that neighborhood. And that family was protected because everybody knew they had an alarm system that was going to call the cops. That's what I was selling. I was selling them peace of mind. I was selling them protection so their family was safe. That's all I had to do. I showed them a couple things, they could do this and it could do that, but nobody cares, right? And everybody else was selling all the cool buttons and stuff. I was selling them how they were going to feel when their neighbors got broke in, but they were safe from that. Okay. So that's what I'm talking about as far as results. So collective confidence comes from your questioning ability and your tonality ability to be able to ask those questions. We're talking a lot, we review these calls, and a lot of times salespeople in the very beginning, they get the questions down, but they, like I said, we were talking about, they sound like a robot. They're like, well, John, what are you going to do if nothing changes in you? And it sounds so scripted. But if I ask the same question, okay, but let's say if you sold, just throw something out here. Let's say if you sold business consulting to business owners, helping them scale their business, right? They can't scale their business. Okay, but John, what happens if you guys don't do anything about this and you keep bringing in these lower quality leads to your sales teams? And like you mentioned, your sales keep stagnating the next 3, 6, 12 months. Like what happens to your division then? See that if I ask it like, so John, what happens if you keep using the same leads you are now to your salespeople and your sales keep going down? Like, see, I'm asking the same I'm using the same words, but it's how I'm using those words. It's like,
and it sounds silly when you do it the second time, but that is literally how most people sound.
Yeah. And then
they're very robotic and non-conversational. And I think that what that does to the prospect is like, oh, this is a tactic, because it's just not a normal part of conversation. And I think what happens, especially in the spaces that I've sold, right? Because the spaces that I've sold are highly emotional.
Yeah.
Fitness, high ticket consulting, all that kind of stuff. Really, really emotional B2B sales. And so like, if you're not, people they'll just tighten up and you'll get nothing out of them.
Emotionally shut down.
Yeah, they just shut down. And then from there, you got to do all this work to try and get it back. So that's why, like my selling style, like I use NEPQ, but my way of doing it is like extremely conversational. Like I don't have any frames at the beginning. I just go, hey man, how can I help?
Yeah.
Like that's it. Because like it was built from like people are just so emotionally like, ugh, like that when they get on the call. So I had to learn to just be very chill.
You can, even on like a consequence question, you can quite literally lean in and say, what if you don't do anything? And that's
it. Dude,
that
fire.
tone.
That's the thing.
What if you don't do anything? The empathy there, but it's so powerful. They're like, and they start crying. I have to do something just off of like 5 words, but it's how I ask it. If I say, what if you don't do anything, John? Like, it's just, okay. What happens if you don't do anything?
Yeah, it's concern.
It's like very emotional at that point. Now you're not asking that question in the first 2 minutes.
Also, you know what else you're not doing is you're not justifying your question.
Yeah.
And that's another thing I hear a lot of salespeople do is they justify their question. And they'll ask their question, then they'll give a little ramble, then they'll ask it again.
They ask the same question twice. Yeah.
Yeah. And so but like with a little justification. Yeah. So what happens if you don't do anything 3, 6, 12 months? Because, a lot of people, they don't blah. So, for you, what happens in 3, 6 or 12 months if you don't do anything?
All that does is dilute the question.
Yeah. That's all it does. And sometimes you don't even need to ask a question.
Yeah.
Sometimes if someone's like, oh, I really need to solve this.
Why?
And you can go, oh, well, why? Or you can just go, solve this.
Yeah.
You could just do that. And that might care. Like if you just want a little bit more detail, you can just use that mirroring technique, solve this like that. And then somebody will naturally go into more. It's about those little tiny, like speak less, but say more.
Yeah. It's so true. It's like, there's so much emotional power there. So let's say a prospect like gives you some type of an emotional word. They're like, man, this issue has got me so stressed out. Stressed out? Oh, you have no idea. Like I can feed back the 1 or 2 emotional words. So anytime somebody gives you a human emotion, like frustrated, stressed, annoyed, concerned, worried. Oh my gosh, you have no idea.
Whereas a lot of salespeople will go, when you say worried, what do you mean? Whereas they could
I'm curious. What do you mean by worried, Mary? It sounds so salesy. I can just say worried, or I can say, how do you mean by worried? See, it's the tonality. You don't want to say, I'm curious. How do you mean by worried? It sounds like a technique, but if I'm like, hold on, go back a few pages. When you said worried, what did you mean by that? See how I said that? Way more emotion there.
Massive.
You like that?
I think I love it. I think it's so important that salespeople, like, I think if we can wrap this up in a little bow, is like, go in there, be a studious, understand not only the what, but the why, because the why, it makes everything easier to understand. Like it's just so much simpler.
You have to understand the psychology behind why a person buys or doesn't buy. You have to put like our good friend Jerry Acuff, co-authored the new book that's coming out this fall. Start thinking like a buyer and stop acting like a seller. Once you start really doing that, selling becomes really, really easy once you learn the right skills and once you learn the right tonality. All right, everybody, we got to get out of here. First step for you. You want give you little nibbles on this podcast. You want a little bit more. Go into our free Facebook group. We give you little d'oeuvres, little nibbles here. So go to www.salesrevolution.pro, salesrevolution.pro. It's our free Facebook group. We've got close to 30,000 or so followers in there, different entrepreneurs, business owners, professional salespeople like you, coaches, consultants, sales management. Right when you join, somebody will DM you on our team a free training called the NEPQ 101 mini course. Matt will actually break down the stages of NEPQ like we talk about, give you a few examples.
I have done that.
And we go live in there 3 or 4 times a week with different Q&As, different trainings. So your next step, you want to know a little bit more about what we do, salesrevolution.pro. Matt, thanks for your time, my friend. You keep that office warm and we will see you.
I will give it a go. All right, guys. Thanks so much. Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Hey guys, if you enjoy these, here's another you can watch right over here. Join our free Sales Revolution group. Click the link below. Join us and we're going to help you. Thanks for watching. We'll see you real soon.